Hi, everybody. So this is really fun. This is the first time that I have done this. We are going to be talking about Survivor. The Survivor Game Changers season has just ended yesterday, so this will be heavy spoilers. If you haven't seen the finale, then you want to watch it and then watch us. But my friend Mark Hoban is also a Survivor fan, and he agreed to come on and talk about the season and the finale. And so do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Mark. I write for a film blog, Fast Film Reviews, and I'm also a big Survivor fan, and recently found out that Rachel is also a big Survivor fan, and so thought it would be a good idea to kind of talk about the final episode and our thoughts and what we thought about the season.
Yeah, this will be really fun. Yeah, we didn't realize it until this season that we both followed the show. It was kind of fun.
Yeah,
And
a lot of people in my everyday life that are really into Survivor. I used to, but it seems like I've stuck with it over the years.
yeah,
And a lot of the people I know have kind of like fallen by the wayside. So.
it's the show that everybody's like, that show's still on. And you're like, yep, still on, still winning Wednesday nights a lot of time.
It's still good as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I would take a bad season of Survivor. I still think it's pretty darn good. Even so it's kind of like in my opinion, a bad Marvel film is still good. Like it's not terrible. So
it's like the pizza of reality television. It's bad. It's still pretty good.
That's a good analogy. That's better. Or ice cream. I always think of like even bad ice cream. It's still ice cream. So what were your thoughts of this season as a whole? Did you like it, not like it, and the Game Changers theme?
Yeah,
what do you think?
Overall, I thought it was an okay season. I don't think it was the best, but I don't think it's far from the worst. I thought it had a lot of ups and downs, and I think from day to day, watching the episodes, I got a lot of excitement out of it. I thought there were some really spectacular tribal councils, and we'll get into a couple of those that I thought were the best. In fact, one of them in the finale was quite spectacular. So those were all really good. I think if you were to like show me who the final three were at the beginning of the season, I don't know if I would have been super excited about that final three. But the way it played out, week to week, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I maybe am a teeny bit lower than you on it, but it's definitely not one of the worst. But I felt like it had a really strong pre-merge. It's one of those seasons that have really strong pre-merge and weak post-merge, I feel like.
Yeah, Malcolm was one of the people that was voted out in sort of spectacular fashion, I think on the third episode. And that was sort of
that was a bummer.
Yeah, that was a moment where I felt, oh, that was really somebody who I actually thought he could have gone all the way. At the very least, I think he should have gone a lot farther than he did. So that was a moment that I thought was sort of a downturn, or a slight downturn for this series.
Yeah, I mean, my least favorite season is Worlds Apart. I just found that one so. I really didn't like Sam Wendell Sir either. Those are probably my two least favorite. I just found them very negative and very like all this personal stuff kind of got in and I don't know, just between Dan Foley and on Worlds Apart and the Shireen drama and all that stuff. I don't know. That to me was really unpleasant. And so those two are probably my least favorite.
One of the things that was nice about this particular season is that they had, which they called Game Changers, which I don't know if all the people were necessarily game changers, but they were all people who had been on the show before. They had a history, and so they were at least interesting. So you were starting from a good base of people, and I thought they collected a nice group of contestants. So
they had like 12 game changers, and then they sort of filled it out after that.
Right.
But I mean, I really kind of wish they would stop with these themes. We'll talk about that a little later, but I kind of wish that they would just go back to just Survivor, outwit, outlast, outplay, because I think sometimes the theme can get a little bit in the way of how people play. I think it can get in the way a little bit of like some of the advantages that they have, some of the things that they do, whereas I guess I prefer it to be a little more pure. And I mean, but I say that, and my favorite season was Cagayan. I loved that season, and that also was a really gimmicky season. So, it just depends, I guess.
Right.
So yeah.
Let's talk about your winner pick.
Yeah.
Who you got?
I thought that Malcolm was going to win. Speaking of Malcolm, I really felt like I just felt like he had the charisma. I felt like he had the team building kind of skills. The way he in the Philippines, the way he was able to just get along with so many different kinds of people, and I don't know, he was just so charming and
very likable.
Yeah, and he has the good gameplay. So I felt like he was just sort of, and I didn't see people would be really gunning for him the way that they ended up gunning for him. That when you have Tony and you have Sandra and you have all these huge winners, JT and stuff like that, and Cirie, I didn't think that Malcolm would be that high on the list to get out so fast. So I he was my pick, but sadly it was not to be.
And just as a refresher to people, he was voted out because Brad had convinced Ty to play his idol for Sierra. So that negated all the votes that would have gone to Sierra and ended up going on to and that was also, and I think this is something you wanted to mention, but this was also maybe one of the first tribals where everybody got up and started whispering to each other.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, so in that episode, I thought it was kind of exciting. Like, oh my gosh, this is the first time that that's ever happened. And then it started to happen again, and I think it happened at least another time. And then I started to feel like, well, now we're not privy to all these details that are being, discussed, and it sort of leaves us in the dark.
Yeah.
So I had mixed emotions about it. I do feel like that is part of the game, and I sort of trust Jeff. So if he allows it to happen, then I'm starting to think, well, maybe it's okay. But
yeah,
the first time I thought it was okay, but then subsequently I started to feel less and less enthused about it.
Me too. That's exactly, I agree. Like, it's kind of like in San Juan del Sur when they wanted to swap for the rice. It's like, it was okay. It was kind of fun, different. Nobody had ever asked, Jeff anything like that. But then when we get it again and again, a couple more times in the season, you're like, okay, it's not as, it's not as novel now. Let's right. Keep it normal. But yeah, I agree, especially in the which is the one I really didn't care for it in the episode where Michaela was voted out, because I really wanted to hear kind of what they were saying.
Told Troyzan to step off.
Yeah, because we talked about that after that episode, because I was like, I want to know what Sarah said. Like, I want to know, because obviously everyone decided to vote for Michaela, but I was surprised that they didn't vote for, I mean, I wasn't surprised, because I knew it was either going to be her or Aubrey, but I wish I could have known why they decided to all go that way.
Right.
So that was one where I was like, oh, I want to hear what they're saying.
But I was actually, I was rooting for Malcolm up until the third episode. And then when he got voted out, I switched allegiances. And I told you somewhere around this time, I think is when we discovered, I thought Sarah looked good. And
yeah.
I am amazed. I don't think it was obviously predictable. And we'll get into some of the things why it seemed like I thought she would win, and some reasons why I thought she might not win. But I did think that she was really, and as it played out, she really was good at making these alliances with people and making people believe that she was on their side.
I wish that the edit had done a better job of sort of telling her story, because I agree. She was totally a worthy winner, and I'm happy. And there's not that many great female Survivor winners. There's some. So it's always happy when you see someone like her, I think, win. That makes me happy. But I wish that they had sort of given her a few more confessionals, maybe about her family or about her story. So I felt more invested in her a little bit more, because I don't know, she just, I felt like they could have done a little bit better job with that. But
can we talk a little, I know this is something you might want to discuss later, but since we're talking about Sarah, can we talk a little bit about the way she approached this season and what I thought was good about it?
Yeah, so, sorry, go ahead.
And this is her words, but she mentioned how when she originally played, she went as herself and she was a little bit nicer about it. and she didn't want to burn bridges, and she tried to, be more, like the way she really was. And then in this season, she talked about how she got permission from her family and friends that she was going to be the criminal this time, not the cop, and play a little bit more manipulative. And it's interesting because I think that way of playing was very much like the winner of her first season, Tony.
Yeah.
And I think she used a lot of that kind of gameplay to play this. And I think that is why she changed the way she played this time. And I think that sort of style really worked for her. I mean, obviously she won, but I think it was obvious even back somewhere around the third or fourth episode where she was really using that kind of gameplay to her advantage.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think you see that quite frequently in returning seasons, that the person will play or try to play the way that their winner from their season had played. Right. I feel like you see that fairly frequently, and it was really interesting because I felt like she was pretty critical of Tony at the Cagayan tribal council and saying, I could never do that. I could never, I could never swear on my badge. I could never swear on my kids. I could never, like, that he had done. And obviously after these years of kind of stewing on it, she kind of come around, and it sounds like they'd had sort of study sessions, if you will, from the reunion, her and Tony. So maybe he kind of convinced her that his way, because he was definitely a game changer, and that was worthy to have that title. I think he really changed, I think, how people had played this game since him, that nobody like him had ever won that was that like aggressive and intense and manic and everything.
He was the second one voted out in the series. So it's just it's interesting how these things, I mean, he was admittedly in a very strong group of people, but anyway.
That was a bummer because they were so close. Like if him and Sandra and JT had, like, they had that winners alliance, and if they had done that, it would have been so good, but they didn't. So there you go. And he was kind of playing the whole idea of sort of the spy bunker and stuff. Like I think he was trying a little bit too hard to kind of fit the image of the person that we all loved so much in Cagayan. Right. And as opposed to
a pressure, to make moves and to be a personality. And I think he was more focused on being a personality than he was in his actual gameplay, like he was the first time. He did a great job.
Yeah, I agree. So I mean, it's interesting because I say that the post-merge was the most interesting part, but in reality, I mean, there was, I forget, I'm not good at remembering all the tribe names and stuff, but Cerise's tribe, I mean, never really went to tribal council. And so it was sort of lopsided in that way, but there were just so many great characters in the pre-merge that, I don't know, what stood out to you in the pre-merge game of the season? We talked about Malcolm, we talked about Tony.
Oh, in the gameplay?
Yeah, or just moments or characters, anything. For me, Sandra was just amazing because I think that I wondered, I'm like, man, you're going to come back and you've already played, you won twice. Like, that's pretty, like leave while you're ahead, I thought, oh no.
Very ego driven. Like she had, she was referring to herself as the queen, and she was doing it openly. And so, I mean, she's fun to watch. She's really like one of the greats in this game. I mean, obviously she's won twice. So I always found her to be an interesting personality. I think she just, a lot of these players though were burned really brightly quickly, and then they kind of got taken care of.
Yeah. But I thought that she had to play aggressive for once, which I really thought was interesting to see. And I think she did, even though she did get voted out. Like, I thought that she did pretty well. And I mean, it was almost guaranteed that she was going to get voted out because her tribe just kept going to tribal council and tribal council and tribal council. If she had gotten a little bit lucky and not had to go to tribal council so many times, I think that she could have been where Cerise was very easily, because I think that she did great in a lot of those tribal councils. And I was very impressed because at least among certain groups of fans, people are like, oh, well, she was just kind of lucky and blah, blah, blah. And
lucky twice.
yeah, and I think that's bogus. I think that there is merit to a sort of a more subtle game. Like, not everybody has to be super aggressive to win. So anyway, she was always the anybody but me kind of a player. But I think that she really proved to me, she took away any doubts, certainly that I had, and I didn't have many, that she is one of the greats. So I was actually glad she came back. I think that it was actually a good choice for her.
I agree.
Yeah. So, and I'm just trying to think if there's anything else in the post-merge. You had, the pre-merge. You had I forget when it was where you did have a nice moment with Suri where she, wanted to finish the race. I thought that was kind of nice. There were a couple other, just, you do get those nice people moments. It's not a completely cynical show, like some people might think. Which I like.
That tribal council with JT, where Malcolm was voted out, I thought that was kind of an exciting tribal council.
Yeah, that was exciting. It was different than I've ever seen before. So, and they had in that one, they changed the rules for that tribal. I'm trying to remember. I should have written them down. What did they do? Oh, they just had that what did they do? It was that the person who they had, I can't remember. I just remember it was something that they didn't give him any time after. That's what it was. They didn't give him any time after challenge. They just took him right to final tribal. That's what I can remember. So anyway, okay. So my feelings going into this final was my feeling was that I thought that Sarah had really created a bitter jury. I felt like she had betrayed a lot of people, and in a lot of different seasons, you've seen them have a really hard time forgiving a female character that plays that hard. Like a Dawn Meehan or I don't know, they even Parvati, was held to a really high standard in Heroes versus Villains. That they have a hard time dealing with that. And so I thought that
Russell Hantz was one of those people that manipulated.
Yeah.
And he was also did not win. So
right.
It has to do with being a woman, but
I don't know. I could be off on that, but it's just like someone like Cass. They were very hard on Cass. Somebody like that. Even though she wasn't a finalist, but anyway, I feel like I felt like she was really going to suffer at that jury, and I felt like Brad had gotten this somewhat hero of an edit up until then. I felt like he was portrayed very positively when he hadn't been portrayed positively before, and so, or at least a lot of people didn't. I wasn't as negative on Brad as other people were. I don't know. I found Candace to be a little bit more annoying, to be honest, in that season. but a lot of people hated Brad, and here he gets this really positive edit, and I just felt like positive edit. I felt like she created a bitter jury. So I was really going into this thinking that Brad was going to win, and I know that you didn't think that. but what was your thoughts going into the finale a little bit?
So first of all, I think Sarah, as far as her ability, she masterminded every vote. She was always on the right side. Always, and Zeke pointed this out in the finale. She flip-flopped a lot, and that is dangerous. The fact that she was doing that, I think, is almost possibly unprecedented for someone to flip-flop as much as she did. But I think it's the way she did it. She masterminded every vote, but she did it in sort of a nice. So this would distinguish her from somebody like Russell Hantz or even maybe Cass, as you mentioned. She did it in a way that didn't piss people off right then and there in the moment. She did it in a nice way, and it was in the moment. I think, for example, she was able to get Sierra's. Even Sierra gave her advantage even after she had voted her out, because she wasn't even aware of what she had done. So I think it was the social game that she did that was so strong. And I feel like I just have faith in the way that she played the game and the way that the people judged her, that they would vote for her respecting her gameplay. I'm much more, even though I'm older, I kind of align myself with the millennials in their thinking. If you noticed in the final finale, Zeke and Michaela both were strong proponents of Sarah. And you have Ozzy and
Debbie,
who were very strong proponents of Brad. They were very old school, and I get Brad's gameplay. Brad won challenges. I mean, that's what he did, and he was good at it. But he didn't have a social game, and
I wouldn't say that. I felt like he did a pretty good job of like forming a core alliance of. I mean, I guess some people give that credit to Sierra, but I think he gives her some credit at least for having.
He was always on the outs, though. He was never really masterminding the vote. A lot of his alliances, the people he wanted to be there, got voted out. He wasn't in control, and I think people were aware of it. And I'm not exactly sure why, but they think that Sierra was masterminding that group. I don't quite understand why they think that. Maybe. But I mean, because I wasn't there, but from what we saw on television, it wasn't clear that Sierra was the brains, is what they called it, of his group. But I think in the beginning of the game, I didn't see it. I saw he was somebody and he was good at challenges. And at the end, the finale, which I don't know, is this unprecedented? 6 people in a finale? I mean, we were 6 people to the end. But anyway, up until that point, we had always seen Brad in sort of a certain light, and the finale sort of showed it made a strong case for his outplay game, because I think he won all 5 challenges in the finale, or I don't know if they were all in that moment, but he won 5 challenges. That's incredible. And so that's where I started in the finale, is where I started to see that Brad could possibly win because of that. But up until that point, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so random sometimes, like in Millennials versus Gen X, when Aubrey to me had played like the great game and Michelle ended up winning. So it's just hard, juries. That's one of the great things about the game, is that it is just the tribe decides, and they can pick whatever criteria they want to vote for a person or not vote for a person.
A lot of it too has to do with who you're sitting next to. As Jeff pointed out, if Brad had sat next to Ty, there's a good chance that Brad would have won. So a lot of it, Brad versus Sarah. I saw Sarah, but I guess
once this episode started, I saw Sarah, but up until then, like I just felt like he'd gotten such a positive edit, and he really got a more negative edit in that finale, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, I can see. I mean, I was really impressed with Sarah too, so I have no problem with her winning, and I think it's a nice character arc to see her from Cagayan. And one thing I thought was interesting is she says, "I was always in the middle," which is really interesting because that's the same thing that happened in Cagayan. But the problem is that in Cagayan, when she gets voted out, she was sort of relishing the fact that she was the one in the middle and the one who was going to decide everything. And she was kind of lording it over Cass, which is a big mistake to do for Cass. And that's when Cass kind of turned on her, and they ended up voting her out because she was the one who was thinking she was on top. And so there was, I think, a little bit of a humility almost to her play this time, which is always nice to see. And it was just interesting to see her grow as a player.
Definitely in control. Sarah, even though she was in the middle, she was constantly vacillating between 2 sides, and every person she wanted to go home did go home. She was always on the right side of the vote. Yeah. So it's amazing how she was able to keep doing that, but she was, and that was unlike her previous season where she wasn't always on the right side.
Yeah, and just not kind of rubbing it in people's faces or anything like that. Like, I think that she did a good job being kind of humble, and that's, I think, a big part. Like, you can have a winner like Kim Spradlin, who is so dominant, but people like her. People want to vote for her because even though she was so dominant, they liked her. And I think that's a big part of it, is that you have to get people, that's the social game, is you have to get people to like you.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's interesting.
Speaking of humility, I want to touch on Brad's behavior in relation to Ty.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Because that was kind of
it was weird.
Yeah, I mean, so my feeling is, first of all, I think that, and Jeff sort of showed this, I think there was a big mistake, and I thought this even as it was happening. Why was, first of all, Brad had so much anger towards Ty for having, supposedly betraying him, and he just wanted him out. And I think he was letting his anger speak. And if you really looked at it objectively, what he wanted to do is get Sarah out at that moment, keep Ty, and I think Ty would have been a weaker person to go up against.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Like, is there any method to his madness, though? Because if he believed that Sarah had created a bitter jury, which, like I saw from the edit, but if that's what he believed, it's kind of like going to the end with Russell Hantz. Like, you want to go to the end with him because he's created this bitter jury. And so if he believed that, that's the only reason it makes sense to keep Sarah. But
right. If he thought that, I think he obviously misread the jury.
Yeah, for sure.
Sarah's gameplay was much more subtle and likable. And then the other thing is, still getting back to like him and Ty, his treatment of him in the way, like, well, you're going to do this, and I'm the king and you're my subject, and you give me your idol or I'm cutting you. And Ty had sort of the right reaction, like, I'm so glad that Ty didn't give him the idol at the very least, because I just feel like he was really bullying in that moment. And that's kind of where I started to that's the moment where I disliked Brad, because I think up until that point, I think he was more likable. They didn't show moments like that. There was a moment between him and Debbie earlier in the season.
But that was weird. Right, it was like, what is she doing?
It seemed more like it was on her. Like, why are you going off? But then it sort of made me question, maybe there was some stuff, that we just didn't see. But at that moment, I thought, okay, this is a guy drunk with power, and I sort of started to lose at that point, I didn't want him to win. And I think you sort of heard that in the finale when they kept reading Sarah's names, the applause started getting louder and louder. I mean, it was there's sort of a feeling, when you're playing the game, it's one thing, and then when you watch it on TV, it's probably another. But it seemed like everybody was sort of in the same boat.
And there have been sort of machismo kind of winners before that aren't as, I don't know, that are, but I don't know. I feel like the edit usually kind of makes you like him a little bit more. Yeah, that was rough in that final edit for him. Definitely. I think that my theory on Brad is that I think that he's probably the kind of guy who's used to hanging out with bros, with guys that are just kind of his style. And so someone like Ty is just someone so different that he's used to dealing with on a daily basis. I have no idea. I don't know the man, so I could be totally wrong. But
I'm okay with somebody who has that sort of ego-driven desire to win and succeed. I mean, the desire to excel in things is a good quality, and that's kind of probably what made him a successful athlete.
Yeah, but Ty is
that interaction though with Ty was beyond the pale. I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, you've gone too far. And he obviously he did sort of accept it, because he in the finale,
apologized.
He's all. I mean, he obviously saw something there that I went too far. I mean, I want to be the winner, but I don't want to like demean people. So
I think that Ty's like a very emotional person. He's just. My guess is he's just totally different than the kind of person that Brad typically hangs out with and deals with. And by the time you're on that late in the game, your nerves were raw, and so I'm not too hard on him, but it wasn't a good moment. I agree.
Right. I get it. I mean, I'm not like I'm just saying that was a moment where he needed to, like you said, he should have had a Snickers and just calm down. Take a breather.
Agreed. Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's go backtrack a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about this Cirie vote. So Cirie Fields, a lot of people's favorite, Survivor player, mine included. I love her ever since Panama. She's the woman who got up off the couch, and she's just always been not only so likable, but also so brilliant in her strategy. And I think it hurt her a little bit this time around.
Would you say the Cirie vote? Are you talking about the idol vote with all the idols?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Cirie vote off. Yeah. So we're going back from the tie situation. But I think it hurt her a little bit this time around, the fact that she didn't go to tribal council until so late in the game. I think that you want to go to tribal council a couple times just to kind of see where everybody else is and just kind of, I don't know, I think it helps you in your game a little bit. And, but I don't know, she's great. It was a tough thing. I guess that she had hurt herself the episode before by playing the clue that was non-transferable.
Right. So let's just, stealing Sarah's vote was the thing where she decided to play it against Sarah in order to help her. I do believe she was being sincere, but that's odd.
It was confusing.
Even for her, even though she was being sincere, I think Sarah had to think, what are you doing? And I think the relationship, so it seems like she sort of recovered in the following episode a bit because she sort of pushed it on Ty and Ty sort of accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a moment, that was a pretty major moment where I think Cirie sort of lost a little bit.
Yeah, and it was a bummer. I was really depressed. I'm like, oh man, because I wasn't a big fan of, I don't know, she was the one I most wanted to win, of course, of these.
You're not alone. Cirie is one of the most likable players, and we can tell this from, the social media that people like her a lot, and with good reason. So I kind of
wish they would do a Redemption Island, South Pacific kind of season and have, where you have two leaders return and then all newbies. I kind of wish they do one with Cirie and Kim Spradlin. I think that would be really cool. But I don't know. I just love her. I think she's just a great person and really wonderful. And it was a tough situation because I guess she had gotten the clue really close to tribal, so that's why she hadn't read it clearly enough. But it did make her look kind of stupid. And I don't know.
There's that. And then the other thing is, let's talk about the actual vote where every single person played an idol or had an idol played on them. So it never happened before.
Everyone never happens again.
Yeah. So so this is the thing. I mean, first of all, I don't know how Ty held on to those two idols. There were votes where he was getting votes. And then they said, well, let's re-vote. And he still didn't play an idol.
I know.
I don't understand. I want to talk to Ty and say, why did you feel comfortable never to play an idol? But anyway, we had this weird, perfect storm where Troyzan had an idol. Sarah had her idol. And then we had, or her advantage. Yeah. And then we had,
Ty give Aubrey the idol, so then it left with only Cirie.
Everyone is protected except for Cirie, and Cirie goes home by default. Now, here's the thing. So, yes, on one moment you can say, oh my gosh, so unlucky, so unfair. But here's the thing where it is a little bit fair. Cirie has never found an idol in all the game time she's played, and she's never won a competition. So she needs to do that. That is part of the game of Survivor. So if she wants to be successful, she's going to need to find an idol. If she had found an idol, then she could have played one herself. But she hasn't done that. So I do agree. I didn't like the fact that she went home. I was bummed about it. But then I sort of have to make peace with it. And I think, you know what? If she had just found an idol, and one of the times, then she would, or see, Ty could have given her the idol too. But I think Ty felt closer to Aubrey at that point. I think she had lost Ty's trust.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where
and she lost his trust. What are you going to do? That's part of the game.
And I do feel like that is part of the game. I mean, everybody had an idol and they all played it. So,
I guess my gripe with it is that we should never get to a point where there's that many advantages and idols, and because then we saw 2 votes in a row that screwed up Ciri's game. You're just because of advantages and idols and crap like that, and you're just you're moving. The more advantages and stuff that we add and inject into the game, the more we lose the spirit of what Survivor is, which is strategy, and it becomes more of a luck kind of a thing, because you have this element. And so that's the only thing that I would gripe about, is that slow down a little bit. We don't need to have so many idols in the game. We don't need to have so many advantages in the game.
I have a question, and I don't even know if we could even possibly figure out the answer, but I'm curious what you think if Ty had only played the idol for himself and he didn't play it for Aubrey. What would have happened? Like, let's say he says, Jeff, I'm gonna play this idol for me. What would happen? Would other people step forward? Or
it's an interesting question because Sierra said in one of the extra interviews I listened to that they didn't think that highly of Cirie, amazingly enough. That they were like, she's not doing a whole lot. She's not that. So that they had this weird idea of her. So I could actually picture them voting Aubrey off if it was between the two of them because of what she had said. I mean, it seems crazy. How could you not vote Cirie Fields, one of the best statisticians the game's had that, but I don't know.
The vote was, I don't know if this was revealed on TV, or maybe it was. If no one had played an idol whatsoever, Sarah would have gone home. She got 3 votes from Cirie, Aubrey, and Ty.
Okay.
And 2 voted for Ty, and 1 voted for, was it Aubrey?
Aubrey, okay.
I think, yeah, that was Aubrey. So Sarah would have gone home if no idols had been played. Now, I knew that would have never happened because I mean, Ty had 2 idols and everybody else had idols as well. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Cirie was ever voted for the whole season. And yet she went home. Yeah. I don't recall any votes for her, but I'd have to check that. But I don't know. That's the only gripe I have with it is that I wish and again, it's hypocritical of me because I love Cagayan and you had the Tyler Perry idol that season. So, it just depends, I guess, how it plays out. But that was a bummer. I thought how that vote got. I was very sad. But there you go. That's part of the game is it's unexpected. So, okay, let's see. We already talked about Sarah being in the middle. Let's see. So yeah, then Brad decides to. I guess we want to talk about the Aubrey vote off at all because it was. I was disappointed with her a little bit this time around. I guess she was just always not able to get into an alliance or get with people.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have to talk a lot about Aubrey, but this is the thing. With Aubrey, I feel like she was good. First of all, I don't think the edit focused on her that much. Mm-hmm. We didn't get to see as much about her.
No, hardly any confessionals.
Her good thing is that she avoided being voted out herself. However, every person that she made an alliance with got voted out. I mean, so she wasn't good at keeping the people that she wanted to be around her. She just was good at protecting herself. So, I think she was fine, but I don't think this season of Survivor wasn't her finest moment.
Yeah, it's too bad because I really thought she played so great in her first season, and I really thought she should have. I mean, jury picks whoever they want, but I felt like she played the best game that season. So, she played a good
game this season, and I do think that the editors didn't show her as much.
Yeah,
so we didn't get as much chance to bond with her. So
I'm sure that's true.
I don't think that's her fault. I think it's just the edit,
I'm sure that's true. So she goes home, and then we get to Brad deciding that he's had it with Ty. He's frustrated, and he's going to take Sarah and Troyzan to the final. I already said that maybe there's some method to his madness, but this definitely did come off on the show as a real boneheaded move on the part of Brad.
Big mistake. I think he blew it there. I think we said this already, but I think he misjudged the jury and he let his ego overtake a careful consideration of what Sarah had done. Yeah. And I think if he really thought, I mean, maybe he would never have come to this conclusion, but I think if he had been sort of cognizant of everything that was going on, he would have gotten rid of Sarah and kept Ty. And then even it did show, and the jury still was sort of split. Even with Ty, he still doesn't quite have a landslide, but then just showed how that Troyzan would be the tiebreaker. So,
I mean, I kind of didn't really like how they did that at the finale because I feel like Now this is months later. This is, they're not in the moment. They're not in that. I don't know.
I have to say, I love that. I like to see. I know it's like it's pouring salt on the wound.
It's hypothetical though. It's not the real
right. You take it with a grain of salt. I agree, but I do like it. It's like an instant replay or like what could have been. And I think sometimes remember what was that one where who was the guy? It was Tony's season. The guy that took Tony.
Oh, Wu.
Yeah. That was like that was horrible. And like everyone at home was screaming, "Wu, don't take Tony."
What are you doing?
Like that was even more obvious, I think, to everybody. But
yeah, I agree.
That's the moment that sticks out in my mind, But that kind of thing. So it's a little bit with Brad. I don't think his move wasn't the worst. I mean, I think to your credit, I think Sarah did do a lot of flip-flopping and turning on her alliances. So it's conceivable that people in the jury would have resented her enough to give it to Brad. And I think being in the moment for Brad, it's easier for us at home because we
and sometimes at Ponderosa they have time to just like stew on it, and I can't believe she did that. And I kind of wondered if Sierra would just sort of stew on it, that she would feel like I gave her my advantage and that she voted for me and whatever kind of a thing.
Here's another thing. I think once Ty got voted out, don't tell me that he didn't go into that jury and say, "Listen, guys, listen to how Brad talked to me."
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sure, and Ty's likable, so I don't think people are going to like, well, I don't know. They're probably like, "Oh my gosh, he talked to you like that's not right." I'm sure that to some people, I mean, obviously to like Ozzy and Debbie, they respect his ability to outplay everybody. So they were kind of like, "Well, that's not good probably," but at the same time, he did outplay everybody. So it wasn't enough to change their minds. But I can imagine that Ty might have turned a mind or two.
Yeah, that's probably, I could see it. That does happen all the time. Like that definitely happened in Caramoan where for some reason, like Philip and some of the other people just had it, like they didn't like Dawn and they soured that. I mean, she didn't help herself, but if you watch the Ponderosas from that season, they were just talking about smack about Dawn the whole time. Oh, yeah. So anyway, it's interesting. So let's see here. What else? So let's just talk for a second about Troyzan. So I was surprised he didn't make the argument to the jury that nobody had ever written his name down, because I feel like that's his best argument. He didn't have much of an argument, but I felt like that's his best argument, and he didn't even make it.
I mean, to be honest, I think never having your name written down might even be a negative in a sense. I think Troyzan is somebody who was likable, and he was considered sort of, I mean, I almost feel like you're considered a non-entity. Like they didn't even consider you enough to try to vote you out. I think he became the sort of person that I think Brad, anyway, was going to take with him to the end, because he realized, well, I'm going to definitely win against this guy because I'm the one orchestrating everything.
Yeah.
So I think you had asked me previously to the podcast, was Troyzan delusional, or is there an argument made for him, for never having his written name down? No, I think he's delusional. I think he's a likable guy. I think Troyzan's really a likable guy. But as far as winning the season, I think they even kind of discussed this in the finale of how there's the driver and there's the passenger, and he really was the passenger.
Agreed. I was kind of glad though, because I felt like out of One World he had this, like, people over hated on him, and I was kind of glad that he came back and he was likable and so there you go. So Sarah says, "I'm the criminal tonight, the jury is the police officer," and I thought she did a very good job with a somewhat bitter jury of managing that. I mean, it was a lot better than, say, Russell Hantz, who was there was no humility at all in Russell. That's part of his shtick.
She did it humbly. It's the way she did it. It's not that she did backstab people.
She was honest about it.
Yeah, she accepted it, and she did it in a way that she sort of said, like, I did this because of the game, and no hard feelings. And, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think she did it in a way, I mean, obviously she won. She did it in a way that didn't tick people off to the point where they weren't going to write her name down. I think I think Ozzy and Debbie wrote Brad's name down mainly because they respected his sort of alpha male ability to just win challenges and push through, and then I guess Sierra wrote Brad's name down also. That I'm not exactly, we don't really know. I'm guessing maybe because, Sarah took her idol and then, voted her out. It's hard to say why. Maybe she just respected Brad.
Yeah, so Brad got 3 votes.
He did. Right. I looked it up as Sierra was the other one. I think Sierra also was on his side for a pretty big part of the season. It was only at the very end that she kind of flip-flopped to Sarah's side. And I'm sure that knowing that Sarah basically voted her out in order to get her advantage left a bitter taste in her mouth. And understandably, I don't begrudge Sierra's decision to vote for Brad. I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, Brad wasn't great, but he certainly wasn't one of the worst ever. Like but he could have just been more humble. Like that was his weakness. That's your fatal flaw. And if there's anything about Survivor is that it exposes, because of the elements, because of the other things, it exposes your fatal flaws, and that's what makes it interesting. Is right. We all have these, and so
I think those. One of your things was the final 3, and what did I think about them?
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty. I mean, Troyzan is probably obviously the weakest of the 3, but I thought Brad and Sarah are worthy opponents. I mean, I think there are times where like somebody wins in a landslide, or you walk into the finale thinking, well, it's obviously going to be somebody. This one had at least a little bit of possibility. So I thought it was a decent final 3. I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, in my dream world, I would have preferred Suri in there, but what do you know?
Right. Or Malcolm, or
yeah. No, but it was solid. It was good. It wasn't one of these ones that's pretty obvious. So that was good. So okay, let's see. We're kind of jumping around a little bit. So let me see. So they have this new method, this Q&A format for the final tribal. What did you think of that?
Okay, so just to kind of briefly recap for people who may not know, usually what they do is in the finale, they have every single member of the jury walk up and say their piece and give a question. And in this time, it was more of a free-form discussion, sort of under the titles of Outwit and then Outplay and Outlast, where Jeff would sort of allow people to kind of almost jump in and give their thoughts in the moment as they saw fit. To be honest, I liked it. I think the thing I liked about it was it allowed people to say, well, this is why I'm voting for so-and-so. And then it's like, well, no, I'm voting for this person because of such and such. So I kind of like the ability to somebody to say something and then the other person to be able to piggyback on their idea or respond and say, no, I don't agree. In the original format, I think it sort of forces everybody to say something. And sometimes out of the people that are in the jury, there are usually a couple people that are just repeating the same thing. Or, you're saying, well, you're only speaking because you're being forced to speak.
Yeah.
Like when people spoke, it had a little bit more passion behind it. Yeah. I'll highlight Ozzy. I thought had a really good thing to say. I thought Zeke had a good thing to say. Debbie and Michaela. I think Michaela had something sort of interesting to. She pointed this question to Brad about, well, what do you know about me? And I thought so. Those kinds of things I thought were good. So overall, I liked it. What did you think?
I liked it too, actually. I thought it was way less boring than the typical Final Tribal. Because I feel like particularly this season, you would have had all this, there was already kind of this grandstanding, I call it, where you had people giving these speeches, and that's totally their right to do. It's their Final Tribal. But I felt like that would have been even worse if it had been the traditional format. And I find that, I don't know, it's just not my favorite. So this was this minimized that as much as it was going to be minimized, and it just kept it moving. It wasn't boring.
Right. No, okay, good. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I think there's more grandstanding in the original format where
Yeah, agreed.
everyone is forced to give a speech, and sometimes people are talking that don't even really have anything interesting to say. And here I felt like people spoke up. I mean, like even Jeff opened the floor, and Zeke's hand went right up and said, let me start.
Yeah.
And he had something to say, it was interesting.
Yeah, or you get like ridiculous questions, like when Natalie asked Parvati who she wanted to like make out with, the jury, and you're just like, that's weird. So yeah, I don't know. So this was much better. Well, not much better, but I liked it. I thought it was a good change. I was a fan.
I'm okay if they want to bring it back. I don't know if it needs to be under the titles Out With, Out, Play, Out, Last. That's a little bit constricting. I almost like the idea of even making it more freeform, just letting somebody speak, and whatever. But I liked the open forum.
Do you have any preference for Final 2 or versus Final 3 at all?
That's a good question. The thing about like this season could have been a Final 2. I mean, I think Troyzan was essentially kind of like out of the equation.
Right.
But I mean, I think there are times where adding a third member, I don't know. I think, do you know, has it been Final 3?
The last Final 2 we had was in Cagayan, I think.
Okay.
Because Cagayan definitely had Final 2, and I can't remember if.
I don't have strong thoughts on the matter. I would say, I guess I'd probably, just because they've been doing Final 3, I'd say just continue with it. But I guess I don't have. Do you have strong feelings about?
I actually prefer the Final 3 because I feel like in Final 2 seasons, there's always one person who I'm like, oh, if only they'd gotten in, like in Amazon or something like that, where you're like, where Rob Cesternino ends up in third place. You're like, oh, third place, or in
So here's an example. I mean, think about if it was Brad, Sarah, and Troyzan, and somehow Troyzan wins the final challenge. Or I'm sorry, Brad wins the final challenge.
Yeah.
Which is obvious.
Then it would be him, and if it was Final 2.
Troyzan for sure. And then
or
it would just so that would have been less interesting. So
if they'd had a Final 3 for fans versus favorites, then Cirie Fields would be a Survivor winner because she lost in Making Fire, and so yeah, I prefer the Final 3. I feel like
I would say, now that I thought of the fact that it could have been Brad and Troyzan, yes.
yeah. So okay, let's keep going here. Let's see here. Okay, we talked about the jury. So we agreed the right one won. Even though I went into it thinking that Brad was going to win, I still am very happy that Sarah won. It was good.
Okay. Yeah.
Agreed.
I was good with that.
The edit. I was paying too much attention to the edit. Okay, so now we get into the reunion show. Let's talk about it for a second. Let's see. We already talked about the alternate vote. I wasn't a big fan of that, and it took too long, I felt like.
It took too long because Brad would not be quiet. It's like, just quiet. Let Jeff do it.
Yeah, and
Jeff was being frustrated. Like,
yeah, and I think that Jeff thought it was going to be this like obvious thing, and then the fact that it was a little bit more sort of mixed was like not the great moment that he wanted it to be. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this. I kind of skipped over it because we figured we talked about it now. So this Zeke and Jeff Garner moment that happened. This was the vote before the merge. Jeff Garner had never made a merge, and he, I think that was part of sort of his mania of the moment. Was just but there's no excuse to what he did. But so he outs Zeke as a transgender person and a transgender man, and he does it in a way that's saying that you shouldn't trust him because he's transgender, and that's somehow deceitful in nature. Obviously, that's ridiculous, and it's so surprising because Jeff Garner would be the last person that I would have ever expected to do something like this, right? Yes? No?
I think at this point, like Jeff Garner realized what he did. He's apologized it. He's owned his mistake, and I'm kind of like ready to move on. I think
Yeah.
at the time, yes, in the moment, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did this. But I think he had a momentary lapse of misjudgment, and he's been raked over the coals over social media, and he has accepted his mistake. And I think I'm ready to forgive and let's move on. Like I don't think
Yeah.
it's a done discussion.
Do you think that the show handled all that well, though? Did you feel like
I think so. I know there's been a lot of discussion about, like, they didn't have to air it and all that, but they went to Zeke and he did give the okay. And so, I mean, I know these things. So
right.
And he's been okay with it. So if he's okay with it, then I'm just a viewer. So
right.
I think in the at the moment it happens, you don't know. You kind of wonder what's going on. Is this something that he was aware of? And but then once you realize, like, all the stuff, I became okay with it. So I my feeling is that the CBS acted fine. It was certainly it became a way for the topic to be discussed by many different people.
Right. And the show is, I think in a way it was kind of proof in a way that the show is real. The show is what it is, and people do crazy stuff, and people, so, you just kind of, it's this weird little microcosm of how people behave when they're under pressure and when they're with people that they don't particularly know, like when they have all these factors all coming in all at once, and what are they going to do? And so, yeah, it was interesting, and certainly a big moment of the season. But yeah, I agree. I'm glad he got a new job and everything. Everything is working out. So, so one question I had, we talked about maybe a little bit about this, but if it had come down to Cirie and Sarah, do you think who do you think would win in that hypothetical?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. Like, so as a viewer, you think Cirie could win because she's so likable. But then you mentioned that, was it Sierra, or some people didn't quite value Cirie's gameplay as much. So yeah, it still might be up for discussion.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good question. I would have loved for Cirie just to have the opportunity to be in the end. And then let the chips fall where they may. If she doesn't get voted on, then that's the way it was meant to be. But we'll never know.
Yeah, we never will. It's such a hypothetical. I think that Sarah probably would have still won, just from what I've heard of the and I don't think that Cirie had that many moves that she could own that were like her moves. I think that's why she probably did what she did, is that she could say, like, I did this secreted Vantage thing, and I think that's part of the reason why she did that. But who knows?
Cirie has the social game down. If it's just about social game, Cirie would beat Sarah because Cirie is more likable, and Cirie wasn't flip-flopping.
Yeah, that's true.
Backstabbing as much as Sarah. However, Sarah, I think was more of a master of her own destiny. And I think Cirie was a little bit adrift on the current, and wasn't quite as active in what was happening. And it really kind of got away from her at the end. And I think, so I agree. You made me, I think Sarah would have probably still won.
Yeah. Interesting. So let's see here.
I have a question. Who would you like to see in this season? Which of the cast members would you most want to see again? Let's pick two people, and then who would you least want to see again?
Well, I would most want to see, let's see if I had to pick two players.
So one I would like to see again, and I think you may agree with me, is Malcolm. I feel like he just didn't get in this season. So I'd like to see him come back and maybe have a chance to go a little farther. So Malcolm would be one for me.
Yeah, I agree with Malcolm. He was definitely, for sure. I have no interest really in seeing JT again. I feel like he's been a dud. both times that he's come back. I don't know. He won once. That's great.
I have no interest in seeing Haley again. I mean, nothing
Oh
against her.
yeah,
Nice person, but she's just like, wait, Haley, who was that again? Oh wait, okay, I know.
yeah.
She did make the jury, so I mean that's to her credit. But I don't need to see her again.
Yeah, and I wasn't huge high on Debbie. I wouldn't. I really.
Funny, though.
Yeah,
Like,
she's
I don't
random.
know if she's at the top of my list, but she's good TV.
But yeah, I would say just more ones that, yeah, she was good TV. That's why I just would say that JT, he made a fool of himself in Heroes versus Villains, and this he was just kind of, So, and I don't know, I feel like maybe I've seen enough Ozzy. Like, he's got the most days.
Yeah.
I don't know if I really need to see Ozzy back again on Survivor.
I feel like Malcolm.
He's pretty, but.
I feel like Malcolm is somebody I could see again because he didn't go very far in the season. But Ozzy, I feel like he's played enough. This is his fourth season.
Yeah, 4 times. Yeah.
Micronesia, South Pacific, and
Fans versus favorites.
Oh,
you already said that, Micronesia.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And then
right. And I'm always going to be up for another Tony season. I feel like he could kind of learn from what he did wrong this time and play a little bit different. I'd be curious.
There because I feel like he got voted out so early. I really didn't get to see him much.
Right.
So I'm much more predisposition to side with seeing Tony again than seeing somebody like like Ty, who I probably like more as a player, but I feel like I've already seen him in 2 seasons now, so and I saw a lot of him. So maybe it's time to see somebody a little bit different.
Yeah, and I mean, I even forgot almost forgot she was on the season. But Sierra Easton, like, she's super overrated. Like, she voted her mom out in a planned thing. Like, she gets way too much credit for that. Like, they'd agreed to do it. It wasn't.
She's been on the show 3 times now. So like that's a lot. I don't see Caleb. I mean, he's been on 2 before now. So he was voted out early. So I don't know. He's particularly exciting either, but
that's true.
I'm just trying to think of like who,
She gets a ton of credit by Jeff because she went to Rocks, that one vote, and because she voted her mom out. And it's like, okay, calm down.
She's the girl who voted her mom out.
Her and her mom agreed on it. Like, it was not like some like crazy thing. Right. Anyway, so yeah. Those would be some of the more duds. I would be up for seeing Sandra again, believe it or not. I thought she just did so good, and I don't know. I was really impressed with her. So.
Yeah, I could see that. I more, I don't know, maybe even somebody from another season then. But but my original question was, who of this season would you want to see?
Right. And I don't know. It's interesting. The Game Changers season. Do you feel like that played? Was it a good, a lot of big moves? Kind of a good season as far as that thing played out. As far as Game Changers.
I was saying it earlier in the podcast. I think the tribal councils were very exciting. Yeah. So that's kind of where those game-changing type moments happen. Mm-hmm. So I think they got the drama they wanted.
So what do you think of this new season? All new players, which I'm very excited about. Heroes versus healers versus hustlers. It's like, a lot of times these, especially when you have tribes of 3 tribes, these ways that they categorize people are pretty flimsy. And
you know what I'm reminded of? This reminds me of Survivor Worlds Apart, which was blue collar, white collar, and no collar. It's very similar to that idea. And I don't right now. I don't even think the distinctions are that defined. I mean, this is heroes versus healers and hustlers, and I guess you're deciding we're gonna group people by their sort of uplifting qualities. But it's such an abstract quality. I mean, at least blue collar, white collar, that is your actual job. This is just like, oh well, I'm a healer, or I'm a hero. I mean, I think one person can be both. I mean, what if you're a doctor? If you're a doctor, you're a hero and you're a healer.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm open to it. I will say though, we didn't get to see a lot of the new people, but the bellhop. What did you think about that?
I can't remember.
There was a guy. He's like, I'm a bellhop, and I'm like, oh wow, that's like not a very glamorous job, but I'm already liking.
He's the hustler, evidently, right?
Is that, I don't even remember how they.
He'd have to be. There's no way a bellhop is a hero. I mean, gosh. But yeah, I thought some of them, especially the hustlers, that's the one that's going to be a stretch. Like someone's personal assistant, like, really? Is that really a hustler?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is. What do I know? But
it's all going to come down to whether they cast good people, whether they what their job is like less.
That's the only nervousness to me, because I really didn't care for Worlds Apart. It's still Survivor. I still like the season, but that was my least favorite because all of this personal stuff got brought in, and all of this, it just was so mean spirited, and that's the only thing I worry about this, like bringing people's jobs into, like they did with Worlds Apart. I worry.
Oh, by the way, you are correct. The bellhop was a hustler, and his name is Ryan. So he looked a little bit like they were casting him as the like Johnny Cochran.
Was he the one that like the turtlenecks?
Yes. Exactly.
Okay. I forgot that he was a bellhop.
Focused on I want to say 5 or 6 people. They didn't.
Yeah, there's a lifeguard, a personal assistant.
Right. This is the 4th season filmed in Fiji, by the way. They're going back to Fiji again.
I'm glad they did, because I think part of Nicaragua, at least an interview I heard with Natalie Anderson, she said that there was almost no fruit or food of any kind, like hanging kind of fruit and things for them to eat. And I think that's what brought on the trading the rice and some of those kind of things. So I'm glad they're in a spot where they have enough food.
Right. We don't want them to die. We just want them to suffer.
Because you want them to be healthy enough to be able to play and be able to be entertaining. And
when you see these people and they show up the challenges and they're all emaciated, I start to get please just give them a banana or something, because that doesn't look healthy. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm glad. I don't need for them to be in different places. A beach is a beach is a beach, as far as I'm concerned. As the viewer,
in a way, it doesn't matter where they film it. It's just as long as it sort of looks remote.
Yeah, because they used to, back Survivor Thailand, they used to have cultural challenges, kind of, where you as a reward you would go tour Thailand, or they would have the head of some tribe come and introduce challenges. Survivor Fiji did a lot of that, and ironically, because now they're in Fiji, but I don't miss that. I don't care. It's a reward is a reward is a reward. So it doesn't matter to me. I'm not watching Survivor for my travel porn. I can watch the Travel Channel for that just fine. So that's fine with me. And it's probably, I would assume, it helped them save money, which on season 34, I'm sure they need to.
Yeah, I wonder if all of this filming in Fiji helps tourism there. Do people book vacations there because they think, oh, I want to go there?
I'm sure there's some. Yeah, I'm sure there's some. Yeah, so that's all I really had. Do you have any other questions that you want to talk about? The ones you had submitted?
No, I think that was it. We kind of discussed everything that I wanted to talk about as we went through the questions. So no, I definitely did a good job with it.
Well, and I think that Sarah could be one that would do really well if she came back again. Because even though she's a winner, she's one of those winners that I feel still wouldn't be seen as a big threat for some reason. I just have that feeling that unlike a Tony or somebody like that that's so big and whatever.
Her personality is very understated, so you kind of feel well, I can take her again because it's not it's very subtle and she's full of humility. Russell Hantz is somebody who is always a really exciting person to watch, but he's such a big personality that he just sort of dominates to the point where you're I can't take more of that personality over season. So,
do you have I'm just curious, do you have a favorite season of one that you like the most?
What was that? We were talking about this and I can't remember now which is the one I said.
I remember you said Redemption Island was your least favorite, but I don't remember which one.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that one. I mean, it's hard because like a lot of the seasons kind of blend together, and there
Yeah,
are certain things that happen in seasons that I like, and then other things that you know.
yeah,
But I can't remember. I've liked a lot. I mean, I like
yeah.
more than I don't like.
Right. Yeah, me too. I've liked even Worlds Apart. I still enjoyed it. Like it's still something to watch. But yeah. Anyway, I also love Surviving the Amazon. That's another favorite of mine. So yeah, that's everything I think we have to say. So where can people find you?
So you can find more of my film reviews on fastfilmreviews.com, and you can also follow me on Twitter, Mark_Hoban.
Awesome. So I'll have that all in the description section, and that should be really, really fun. And I am doing tomorrow. I'm doing a podcast with my friend Richard. We're going to be talking all about Titanic. So that'll be a special classic movie, whatever, older movie podcast that I'm really looking forward to. So something to look forward to tomorrow. And thanks so much for doing this. This was a lot of fun to talk about Survivor.
I'm normally, on podcasts for movie reviews, so fun to talk about television for a change.
Yeah, it was fun. All right. Well, we will see you all later.